So we have our piston rings. They contain all of the explosion that comes down and pushes the pistons down in the cylinder. We need to make sure that as we put our new ones in, that this gap is not too narrow, because we're boosting the application, so it's going to create more heat. These things will expand and they'll come together. If they touch in the cylinder wall, it can crack our pistons. So we want to make sure that we have enough gap. In this application, we're going to look at running 21 thousandths on the top ring and 19 thousandths on the second ring. So we're going to set them into the cylinder. We'll take one of the pistons, push it down, make sure it's flat. We'll measure it with our feeler gauges to check the thickness of it. Then we'll take it over to our little grinder, grind it down, and make sure that it is nice and neat. While I do this, Bryce is going to be cleaning the pistons up themselves so that they're ready to go. Should be good. Okay, so Bryce has got a pro tip for us.
Yeah, so for those of you at home cleaning up pistons from a Volvo 245, take your Dremel drill brush and squirt it with a little bit of brake clean. Just give it a couple, 2 tree chooches there. And then use that to clean your piston rings. The brake clean really does help break it down, makes scrubbing it a lot easier.
So full professional tip right there.
Yeah, pro tip.
See, Bryce is over here doing work, being awesome.
Call it work.
Well, you're doing stuff. You're getting that clean than it was.
It's better.
It's good.
It's good, but it's
hey,
better.
It's fine. Okay, now that we got our piston rings all filed down and ready to go, we now have to make sure our clearance in the crankshaft department is up to par or whatever. We need enough space in there so that the crankshaft can spin. We can get a nice oil barrier to save it, but we don't want too much space because then that allows for slop. So Bryce is over there with the caliper. He's measuring our crankshaft to make sure where it is, and then I'm going to flip this over, put some main journals on it with the bearings in it, and we'll dial bore gauge it to see where they stand on their measurement. Alright, so I am getting the caps in the block here, got the new bearings, got it all cleaned up so that we can measure it. Bryce has got these measurements over here, and he's getting this tool over here set up. Bryce, would you like to explain a little bit about what that tool does?
Alright, so this is a dial bore gauge, and what it does is it tells you how far off from a predetermined size it is. So what you do is you measure your main journals, or your rod journals, either one. You measure what each of those are, and then you write that number down. You're going to measure those using a micrometer, and then you're going to set that micrometer to that size. You then set this up and use your micrometer to set the 0 on the gauge at that exact size. And then when you stick this in the gate or in the bore of your journals, it will tell you how far off you are from that set 0.
Got the auxiliary shaft in, that drives the oil pump and the distributor, so that's slightly necessary. Now we're going to take our main caps out, which we already got those out. We're just doing it as we were checking them. This one's a little more
in there?
Yeah.
It's fine.
So now we can lube these up to put our crankshaft in our block. And it is also very important that when you're putting an engine together, all your main caps are numbered for normally starting at the front of the engine as being number 1, and however many caps it goes back. Normally 5.
That's the arrow.
Yes.
Okay.
They'll have an arrow that points to the front. You got to make sure that they're in the right orientation and the right journal, because they're actually machined together. So yeah, they're two separate parts, but whenever they're machined, they were bolted down and together, and they machined through it to make sure it's a perfect circle. And if you mix them up, they could be off. So you got to make sure to do that, and then that way everything will be able to spin freely at high RPM that they're made to do. Now we got the crankshaft in and we got the main caps on, we have to torque it. Now, we don't just torque it down the line. You need to start in the center, go crisscross, and then work your way out. That allows crank to actually be put in there and not get in a bind as you're going through here. So we're going to go ahead and start in the middle. We'll do steps. Our steps are not going to be maybe the proper steps.
I was going to do the proper steps. 40,
Oh.
60, 80.
Bryce is going to do 40, 60, 80 on the steps. So
this is 40 foot-pounds.
Just like that. Super difficult at 40. I mean,
really cranking down on it.
Yeah. Most difficult thing we've ever done, really. Up. Woo!
Still spins nice and free.
So, I think we did something right. Now let's go ahead and slap if I haven't told you, you want to make sure you oil the skirts down here too, because they come into contact with the block a lot as this rotates around. It's actually pushing forces on the side of the piston. So we want to make sure that there's oil in there to give a protection layer between the two metal surfaces. Now we need to get this flywheel machined. That is a major step. I'll go ahead and work on getting the oil pump back in it, get the bottom end a little buttoned down. We do have one thing we have to do, the oil pan, before we can put it on, and the back cover, and then we can start putting the front cover on, and yeah, we'll put the head on here pretty soon as well. So we'll just keep rolling on the train. Might be done for the night, but I will catch you guys the next time that we start working on this. Okay, it's the next day. We got the engine flipped over and the head setting up here, ready to torque down the head bolts. These are new head bolts because with an engine like this, it uses a stretched head bolt. So every time it's used, it's stretched, and you want to get a new one every time, because once it's stretched, you stretch it again, it becomes a lot weaker. So you want to make sure to get new head bolts for this. It has an interesting torque spec for the head. You want to do 15 foot-pounds. You're going to start in the center and then go out, crisscrossing back and forth to go from the center out to make sure that head sits down evenly. You'll do 15 foot-pounds the first pass. You'll do 45 foot-pounds the second pass. And then a little bit unique on the last pass, you would say, you're going to set your torque wrench down, get your breaker bar out. And it's easy if you have a degree wheel. If not, you just have to look and find. But it is a 90-degree turn after your 45 foot-pounds. So you'll get on there, you'll hit it on, and you'll do 90 degrees and call it good. So we'll get this head torqued down, and I will see you just in a second. Got our camshaft all lubricated. Got a assembly lube on it, and we're going to now set it in our head. The cam is not going to just sit down where it's supposed to be. It's got to compress a couple of the springs so it can sit level. Put the caps that are numbered, because they have to be in the right spot, get those on here and get those torqued, and then also put the seal on the front of the camshaft, which we have a new one right here. So as you can probably tell, this engine is a lot farther together now. Got a couple little things done. I went over to Ed's house and he helped me reassemble the old turbo with the new cartridge in the center. So that is all ready to go, which is very much a relief. Have been waiting on some parts. So this is as far as we can get this before the parts come in. This is going to make a very tight time schedule for us to be able to leave for sick week, which is actually in like a week, just a little under a week that we're leaving. And yes, the engine still looks like this. However, we will get this done. Okay, so we got some of our parts in a box here. We got a set of spark plug wires. We got our fuel injectors here. We got some bushings, a plate that goes on the back of the head to cover up the hole from the swap of the different head, and our clutch. So this is going to help get us a lot closer to getting it all the way together. Now we got another box that showed up. It's got some piping, hosing, little fittings, all that. AN fitting, a brass fitting, some hose, high pressure oil feed line. Got a couple more little packages that will be showing up with stuff like that to get this thing all put back together. So another box has showed up for our build. Got a little bit of noise because we got the heater going on because it has turned out to be a little chilly here in Indiana. We have a nice little sticker, so that's always helpful. You know, that really adds to the build. So got a seal for the auxiliary shaft, which is what we were waiting on to get the engine timed. Let's see what this is. This is a door handle for the passenger side, for the passenger door. Necessary, but not to get the engine together. So that's going to go back in the box for a second. And then our last component, and it's right this time. So got ourselves a new water pump so we can have coolant flow, which is kind of slightly important. So got Ed here too, so you'll probably see him in the background helping out and hanging out. And he's sinking behind the engine now, but it's fine. So, well, his knees don't go that low is what he says. But okay, let's get something done. Okay guys, we got that water pump slapped on the front of our engine right here. Now with that done, and we got our new seal in for the auxiliary shaft, that's what it's called. Now we got the seal in for the auxiliary shaft. We are ready to put our timing belt on. And I wanted to kind of show you guys a little bit about that because I found it kind of tricky whenever I had to go back and I had to figure out how to do it. Now I would like to show you guys because there is a pretty easy way to do it once you get it figured out. But on your belt, you're going to have your timing marks here. One is a double mark, which that's going to go for your crank. You want to make sure you're top dead center. Then you want to make sure that the dot on your cam is also at top dead center for cylinder 1. Just gets it all in time so that the valves move at the right time. So we're going to make sure that this is lined up with where that would be. Now it's going to stretch straight up here, so it's not going to actually come in contact with it. But the mark on the auxiliary shaft and the timing, the camshaft one will be. And you're going to notice there's a different length between them. The two, and then the one that's closest is going to go this way, so you can line it up with that belt. You want to slip it over here. Nice and easy, like that. So your best bet on this is we do have a pin in here. This pin goes down with the spring on it. That aligns our tensioner pulley. This nut is actually loose here so that we can allow this to move back and forth. With it just on the pin, it doesn't give us quite enough room to put the belt on. So you want to have a pry bar. We can keep this just a little bit loose. Bring your pry bar over here. Go off of this shaft. Bring it down so that gives us a little more room there. Yeah, just easy like that. Anyway, the one thing that is really important is making sure you know that that hole is there so that whenever you pull it back out to take it apart and everything, you don't have to worry about it slinging out and losing your spring and all that. That was not fun to get together the first time. So, yep, that is essentially how you get it timed. Make sure your dots line up with your little marks. And then we release the tension on this, let it go back out, tighten it all up. Another thing you have to watch on this tensioner it has a pin that goes up in the head right here. You have to make sure that this pin is setting up in there flush against the block or against the head, because if it's not, it'll let the belt shimmy back and forth, and you want it to stay right center, because if it comes off, then you're going to have issues. It's never a good day. Okay, guys, and just like that, we have everything together. We got the timing belt and everything that you saw. We got some extra lines ran, and it is ready to drop into Benny the Volvo station wagon that we have to have running in, well, from today, it's like 6 days. I have to be ready to leave. From when you guys see it, it'll probably be in a couple days. But that is it for today's episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you learned a little bit about the Volvo 2.3 liter engine and some of its quirky things, like with timing and all that. But thank you for joining us. Have a blessed day, and I'll talk to you guys next time.